I don't know if you can see me and I don't care. Just chilling. Today was actually today was kind of crap. Well, it started kind of crap, mostly because I didn't sleep worth a shit. Um, I uh, that's what it was. I was just about to sleep and a scam call woke me up, and I lay back down and I was just about to sleep again, and the power went out, and I was already hot and considering kicking off the cover, and it was too late at that point. And so I just get up, realize Dad's on the lawnmower, and just immediately get in the yard and start making sure there's nothing out there. And there wasn't much, thankfully, so I didn't spend long doing that. But then while we're out there, the power comes back on, thank God. So I'm like, I'm gonna sit down and eat. And like the second I do, Mom's just like, as soon as you're done, can you please go to town and get gas? I'm like, okay. So a half rush, which they didn't ask me to be clear. Um, but he had put in the very last of the gas, and the last thing I wanted was him just sitting somewhere waiting for me to get back with gas. Um, so I get back and I finally settle in some, and the rest of the day from there is mostly fine. I started New Genesis Fantasy Star Online 2, and it was really good actually. Oh, I forgot one more anxiety thing that I still haven't dealt with, and I don't know when I'm going to. And I'm just gonna let my anxiety win this one because fuck it, for now at least. So at 1:10, my phone goes off and says, "You have a doctor's appointment at 1:30." Now, no big deal. I've been doing phone appointments this whole time, and honestly, I've not even been keeping up with the dates because, again, they're phone appointments. She calls. And I was like, oh yeah, I have that today. But this one was supposed to be in person. And I just ghosted that fucking appointment. And I don't know how I'm going to handle it yet. But I wasn't handling it today. Because I've still got a refill left. So it's not like I'm in danger of running out of medicine. But, good God. I'm like, I should call and make something up, but I don't wanna. Maybe she'll just call when I don't show up. She didn't. Um, Whatever. Uh, we'll deal with that when it becomes an issue. So then, like I said, I just settled into New Genesis, and it's genuinely really good. It's mostly texture overhauls and the animation overhauls. Like, well, I'm starting off on the wrong foot. It is a new world, a new story, um, and if it connects back to the original Fantasy Star Online 2, I haven't seen it yet. And honestly, that might not exist yet. Um, like it's so fresh right now that I think the overall level cap is 20, and there's only four. There's only the base classes, the base six classes, and the level cap is 20. Um, you know, I don't know how quick they're going to be to roll out new content. Not that I'm in danger of running out. I think, um, but you know, at least like I'm not going to finish it tomorrow anyway. Um, and I might even skip tomorrow and just kind of do or limit tomorrow. And pair this with another game. Uh, 90% of the issues I had with it, technically, I'm pretty sure come down to my connection. Because I did spend all of my data downloading it. So, a couple of times I got kicked off. And like in the beginning, it was happening annoyingly often. Maybe I can't play it during the day when I my personal connection is in peak hours. But like once it got like 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, it was fairly rock solid. And that's when I started getting weird crashes, just straight up freeze crashes, um, and not even full crashes, just screen freeze. Program is unresponsive, and I'm wondering if those were also just connection issues. But you know, uh, something of this scale, because if you're not aware, the original Phantasy Star Online was the places where you did combat were sort of procedurally generated. That's not the right word. There were a set number of layouts for each location, and you'd go through that layout, and it was very linear and very restrictive. Um, and it was fine for what the game was. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it felt small or anything like that because of the scope of what you were doing. Um, but they went from, you know, fairly linear to straight up open world. Um, and what's interesting is I just spilled Coke all over myself. Fantastic. 1 second. Um, what's interesting is I was kind of musing to myself earlier today before I got into it, about how when I remember when Genshin Impact was announced, it was, oh, look at this Breath of the Wild clone. Look at this game that's just Breath of the Wild and will never not be just Breath of the Wild. We should scorn them. And it ended up like carving out an identity for itself, not just because it was extra anime or whatever, but it was less just copying Breath of the Wild and more taking their innovations and refining them for an MMO. Just like Nintendo kind of took inspiration from things like Skyrim and all of that and said, all right, we're going to look at all this and we're going to do it we're going to do it in one of our worlds in a unique way, and awesome. And it's like you can't just have similar cel shaded art style and the ability to climb and go, oh, that's ripping off Breath of the Wild. Um, but I bring all that up because it seems like we're in for a trend of Breath of the Wild style massive games. Big map, um, right, reliably traversable. In fact, out of the three that I'm comparing, Breath of the Wild is probably the most restrictive, at least in its climbing mechanics. Um, but it's because there's like a finesse to climbing in Breath of the Wild. As far as I know, Genshin doesn't really expand on the climbing that much, and Phantasy Star Online deals with it by just making you extremely mobile, which I appreciate. Um, we're talking like super high jumps, double jumps, gliding, infinite gliding, um, and that not being something you have to earn. Um, they want you to be able to move swiftly around this large world. But, and all three games do this thing, or where, well, Breath of the Wild and Genshin both do finding a central location in a new area. I think, like for Breath of the Wild, it's the towers, and for Genshin Impact, it was these different shrines that would either reveal or give details about the map. Um, Phantasy Star Online kind of does that. I mean, it does have it has these checkpoint towers that you can teleport between, but I don't think they reveal a significant amount of the map. I think you just have to discover stuff instead of the map being this thing you have to constantly have open to know where you're going. Um, if you have a specific destination in mind, whenever you're near important structures, your little floating companion, which is called a mag, um, starts doing like an animation that's like a passive scan of the direction it's in, and then you just kind of find it naturally that way. The next thing that New Genesis does, um, from Breath of the Wild that I don't think Genshin really did, um, is there are essentially shrines in New Genesis, and this isn't a complaint, nor is it a scorn, a scornful like I'm not calling them out for it, but yeah, no, there are isolated challenge areas in the overworld, and that's how you earn skill points instead of just leveling up. I think it's better because the skill points are applied to all classes. You don't have to level an individual class to put skill points into it. You can so if you're gotten a good bit of skill points and you want to try another class, yeah, you'll go back down to level 1, but you'll have some bonuses and extra and little, you'll at least have the talent tree sort of filled in, or the ability to just go ahead and fill that in to help. And it's also nice because you can get sort of a feel of how the class is going to play when your levels higher and all that good stuff, without having to slog through it. Um, Anytime I wanted to change from Phantom, the class that I played the most in original PSO, to um, it was just a chore between losing the ability to between having to go back down to low level quests, um, having very little of just having a very basic level of skills open without any real feel of how the class is going to flourish, and then having to, if you didn't have um, either people to carry you, or um, if you didn't save up the special tickets that like just shoot you through levels. But even then, um, even getting up to like 30 and 40, you weren't realizing the class's full potential, and I would just get bored of it, and it would take like a day or two, and I just didn't want to take that time. And so this approach, where at the very least the classes will be, I've started a class that I want to play from the ground up, and I'm learning the game that way. So when I swap to a new class, yeah, my stats will be down a bit, but one, I can supplement that with a subclass, and two, um, a lot of the things will be unlocked. Another major change that the original should have done is you can now equip and use talents for the weapons of your subclass. They're not as strong as they would be if it was your main class, but you have that option, and that creates a lot more flexibility in builds than the original offered. Um, like in the original, I think you could even go as far as to equip um, weapons from your subclass, but I don't think you could equip arts. Maybe I'm wrong. Uh, Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. Maybe I never figured out how to do it. But I'm pretty sure you were just stuck to your main. When it came to weapons and arts, you were basically stuck to your main class. So, and the point of that is, I can set something on subclass, try out a weapon style without completely nuking my stats, and see if I want to explore it. Um, there are still skills in the tree that are reserved for it being a main class, so you'll get extra. But instead of having the whole thing restricted, there's just extra bonuses for setting it as your main class. Um, and the last thing they did was multi-weapon fusing, which is you literally take two weapons and essentially instead of breaking one down to raise the other's level, you essentially pair them into one weapon now, and you can set arts from both weapons in one weapon palette instead of having to take the time to swap to the other weapon. So if you have two weapons that you like using, but you don't have, it's like for me right now, I like using the rocket launcher and the basic assault rifle. And for both of them, I only really have one or two of the photon arts that I really jive with. So now I can just set them all. I can just use all of them. I can those four arts, or like I think it's like five in total, which is good because that's what you need. You have basic attack and then two slots, and then you have a button that rotates to the back of that, so you can have three more slots. Um, but yeah, I can just use the five arts I like, and like I like some of the rocket launcher's arts, but I don't like using it basic attack wise, um, because I'm not running in parties, and it's definitely meant to be used at much higher range than I'm capable of doing so. So I like the assault rifle better because it's more flexible when you're forced in a close range combat. Um, in that it's a lot more mobile. Um, Not as mobile as Phantom was, and God, do I miss Phantom. But still, um, so yeah, that's brilliant. And like seriously, when I like, it really, really is brilliant. That's an excellent change. Uh, and then the last thing is, while they didn't necessarily update uh, like standard stuff for character models, the combat animations, like I imagine they'll come back and maybe if they're going to, they'll probably clean up the stuff later. But still, like the nod, like your character's nod, is still the slowest and most awkward nod I have ever seen, especially for a game that looks this good. Like that nod is just something else, man. Um, but in combat, the animations are genuinely fantastic, um, which I didn't pick up specifically until I tried out Twin Daggers, and just like I didn't really mess around with it much in the base in the original PSO2, but I'm fairly certain they weren't this smooth. Um, Maybe I'm wrong again, and maybe it's just the overall visual polish that is, or maybe it's like the new engine that's running it smoother if it is in a new engine. I know jack shit about a lot of this stuff. I'm tired and I'm mildly sticky, so I'm gonna go wipe Coke excess off of me and then go to sleep. I'll catch you all tomorrow.